Scary telling.
My closet door slid open with a creak, making me jump. I pretended his distraction had worked and that I didn't see him crouched in the corner of my room. I knew what was going on, but I was too afraid to move. I just stared at him, hoping he wouldn't notice me. He was the Shadow Man, and he had been following me for weeks. At first, I thought I was just imagining things. I would see him out of the corner of my eye, but when I turned to look, he was gone. But then he started getting bolder. He would appear in my dreams, always standing in the shadows just out of reach. And now, here he was, in my bedroom, watching me. I didn't know what to do. I was paralyzed with fear, unsure of how to react. I knew I had to do something, but my mind was racing with thoughts of what could happen. Was he going to hurt me? Was he going to take me away? As I sat there, frozen, he started to move. Slowly, he stood up, towering over me. He didn't say a word, but I could feel his eyes on me, watching my every move. Suddenly, he lunged forward, grabbing me by the arm. I screamed, trying to pull away, but his grip was too strong. He dragged me towards the closet, and I knew I was in trouble. I was screaming and thrashing around, but the Shadow Man's grip only tightened. He pulled me closer to the closet and I could see the darkness inside, like a void that was waiting to swallow me whole. I tried to fight back, but it was like I was moving in slow motion. The Shadow Man's strength was overwhelming, and I was no match for him. I was going to die, and there was nothing I could do about it. Just as I was about to be dragged into the closet, something strange happened. The Shadow Man suddenly let go of me and stumbled backwards, as if something had hit him. Confused, I turned around to see what had happened. That's when I saw a figure standing in the doorway of my room. It was a woman, dressed in a long white gown, with dark hair cascading down her back. She was glowing with an otherworldly light, and I knew in that moment that she was not of this world. The Shadow Man was now cowering in the corner, like a frightened child. The woman approached him, her hand outstretched. He recoiled, but she persisted, until finally he was enveloped in a bright light and vanished. I was left standing there, trembling and unsure of what had just happened. Who was that woman, and why had she saved me? I didn't have the answers, but I knew that I had been given a second chance. The rest of the night was a blur. I remember falling asleep at some point, but the dreams that haunted me were anything but restful. I saw the Shadow Man everywhere I turned, always lurking in the shadows. In the morning, I woke up with a start, my heart pounding in my chest. The events of the previous night felt like a distant memory, but I knew that they were all too real. I got dressed and went to school, trying to act like everything was normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. That feeling only intensified as the days went by. The Shadow Man was gone, but in his place was a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. I was always looking over my shoulder, waiting for him to appear again. But it wasn't just the Shadow Man that I was afraid of. There was something else, something that I couldn't quite put my finger on. It was like a presence that was always there, lurking just out of sight. Days turned into weeks, and the feeling only grew stronger. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't focus on anything but the fear that consumed me. I was losing my mind, and I didn't know how to stop it. That's why I saw her again. The woman in white, glowing with an ethereal light. She appeared to me in my dreams, always just out of reach. She seemed to be trying to tell me something, but I couldn't make out what it was. I knew that I had to find a way to reach her, to understand what she was trying to tell me. But the journey ahead was going to be a long and terrifying one. I spent the next few days trying to figure out how to reach the woman in white. I searched online for answers, but nothing seemed to match what I was experiencing. I felt like I was going crazy. One day, I decided to go for a walk in the park. It was a beautiful day, and I thought that some fresh air might help clear my mind. As I walked, I noticed a group of people huddled around a woman in the distance. As I got closer, I realized that it was the woman from my dreams. I couldn't believe it. She was real, and she was here. I approached the group, but when they saw me, they all dispersed, leaving me alone with the woman. She smiled at me, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I knew that I was safe with her. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "My name is Arya," she replied. "I've been watching over you, trying to keep you safe." "Why?" I asked, confused. "There are forces at work here that you can't comprehend," she said. "But I believe that you are the one who can stop them." "What do you mean?" I asked, feeling a surge of fear. "There is a darkness that is growing in this world," she said. "A darkness that feeds on fear and despair. The Shadow Man is just one of its manifestations. What can I do to stop it?" I asked, feeling overwhelmed. "You must face your fears," she said. "Only then can you defeat the darkness." "How do I do that?" I asked, feeling like I was in over my head. "By confronting the things that scare you," she said. "By facing your demons head on." With that, she vanished into thin air, leaving me standing there, alone and confused. But her words stuck with me. I knew that she was right. I had to face my fears if I was ever going to be able to move on with my life. That night, I made a decision. I was going to face the Shadow Man, no matter what it took. I waited until the middle of the night, when I knew that he would come. I sat in my room, the lights off, waiting for him to appear. And he did. He materialized out of the darkness, his shadowy form looming over me. But this time, I was ready for him. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest. "I'm not afraid of you," I said, my voice shaking. The Shadow Man just stood there, staring at me. But then, something strange happened. His form started to flicker, like a light bulb that was about to go out. And then, he was gone. The darkness lifted, and I was left standing there, victorious. I knew that the journey ahead was going to be a long and difficult one, but I was ready for it. I had faced my fears and emerged victorious. Or so I thought. The next few weeks were the most peaceful I had experienced in months. The nightmares stopped, and the Shadow Man was nowhere to be seen. I felt like I had finally put an end to the horrors that had been plaguing me. But then, one night, I woke up to the sound of scratching at my closet door. I knew that sound all too well. I tried to ignore it, but the scratching grew louder and more insistent. I got out of bed and approached the closet, my heart racing. The door slid open with a creak, revealing a darkness so thick that I could barely see my hand in front of my face. And then, I saw him. The Shadow Man was back, and this time, he was more powerful than ever. I tried to run, but he was too fast. He caught me, his cold fingers wrapping around my throat. "You thought you could defeat me?" he hissed, his voice echoing through the darkness. I struggled to break free, but his grip was too strong. I felt myself slipping away, my vision growing dark. And then, suddenly, I was back in my bed, gasping for air. It had all been a dream. But as I lay there, Trying to calm my racing heart, I realized that the nightmare wasn't over. The Shadow Man was still out there, waiting for me. I knew then that I had to find a way to defeat him once and for all. But I didn't know how. That's when I remembered Arya's words. I had to face my fears. But how could I face a creature that seemed invincible? I spent the next few days trying to come up with a plan. I researched everything I could find on the Shadow Man, but nothing seemed to help. And then I had an idea. I would try to communicate with him. It sounded crazy, but I knew that the Shadow Man was more than just a monster. He was a manifestation of something much bigger, something that I couldn't understand. I sat down in front of my closet and closed my eyes, focusing all of my energy on the Shadow Man. And then I spoke. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. At first, there was nothing but silence. But then, I heard a whisper, so faint that I could barely make it out. "I am the darkness," the Shadow Man replied. "I am the fear that you cannot escape." "But why me?" I asked. "Why have you been tormenting me?" "Because you are the one who can defeat me," he said. "You have the power to overcome your fears, and in doing so, you can defeat me." "How?" I asked, feeling a glimmer of hope. "You must face me," he said. "You must confront me in the place where you fear me the most." I knew what he meant. The closet. The place where all my fears had come to life. It was a terrifying thought, but I knew that I had no other choice. I had to face the Shadow Man if I was ever going to be free from his grasp. So, that night, I stood in front of my closet, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew that what I was about to do was risky, but I had to try. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, summoning all of my courage. And then, I stepped into the darkness. What happened next was beyond anything I could have ever imagined. At first, the darkness was overwhelming. It felt like I was being swallowed up by a void, my body disappearing into nothingness. But then, I saw him. The Shadow Man. He was standing in front of me, his form shifting and twisting like a black smoke. I felt a surge of fear, but I didn't run. Instead, I stood my ground, my eyes locked onto his. And then, something strange happened. The Shadow Man began to change. His form became less distinct, less menacing. It was as if the more I confronted him, the less power he had over me. I felt a glimmer of hope, and I pressed forward, determined to defeat him once and for all. But just as I thought I had won, the Shadow Man let out a piercing scream, and everything went black. When I came to, I was lying on my bedroom floor, my body bruised and battered. But I was alive, and I felt something that I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. I knew then that I had defeated the Shadow Man. I had faced my fears and come out the other side. And so, I went on with my life, free from the nightmares that had haunted me for so long. I never forgot what I had been through, but I knew that I was stronger for it. Years passed, and I grew older, but the memory of the Shadow Man never faded. And then, one day, something strange happened. I was walking down the street when I saw a figure in the distance. As it got closer, I realized that it was the Shadow Man. But this time, he was different. He was smaller, less intimidating. And as he approached me, I saw something in his eyes that I had never seen before. Gratitude. "I want to thank you," he said, his voice quiet. "You saved me." I was stunned. "Saved you?" "From what?" "From myself," he said. "I was a manifestation of your fears, but I was also a manifestation of my own. I was trapped in this world, unable to move on. But you gave me the strength to let go. I didn't know what to say. It was a strange and unexpected encounter, but it gave me a sense of closure that I had never thought possible. And so, I walked away from the Shadow Man, feeling lighter than I had in years. I knew that my life would never be free from fear, but I also knew that I had the power to overcome it.